Philip Guston, the artist, was born in Montreal, Canada in 1913. He moved around a little bit during his early life. His parents moved to Canada from Odessa, Ukraine to to get away from persecution because they were a Jewish family at the time. Um, so then from Canada, they moved to Los Angeles. When he was 10 or 11, his father hanged himself in the shed, and he was the one who found him. So obviously, this had a great impact on his life and on his later work. Um, Guston started drawing when he was 14 years old. In 1927, he enrolled in the Los Angeles Manual Arts High School. At this school, he was introduced to modern European art, Oriental philosophy, theosophy, and mystic literature. His mother was very supportive of his art his entire life. Um, when he was younger, he would draw in a small closet with a hanging bulb. Um, After he graduated from high school, he went on to the Otis Art Institute of Los Angeles for 1 year on a scholarship. Um, in 1936, he moved to New York where he eventually met his wife, Musa McKim, a fellow artist, and the two married in 1937. From 1973 to 1978, he was a professor of art at the University of Boston. I also read that he was a professor at New York University, so he obviously taught a lot and was a great professor. In 1967, he moved to Woodstock, New York, where he stayed until his death in 1980. I Here's a quote from Philip Guston. Think a painter has two choices. He paints the world or himself. And I think the best painting that's done here is when he paints himself. And by himself, I mean himself in this environment, in this total situation. He said this in 1960. I wanted to include this because I think it really shows the type of person he was. He was really into his paintings and really wanting to show the true authenticity of what he was painting. For example, a person, he really wanted to show their entire situation, as he says, and it really comes across when you look at his paintings. Um, I also included some pictures. The I just wanted to show the artwork. The first picture is of Guston when he was obviously younger. You can see the type of style he had. It's very, very different, very abstract, which is what he is really famous and known for. So.
Philip Guston emerged first in the 1930s as a social realist painter of the murals in the 1930s. He made his name as an abstract expressionist. Guston was awarded a scholarship in 1930 to study at Otis Art Institute. He later had an enrollment in the Works Program Administration Federal Arts Project. The stock market crashed and it led the U.S. into the Great Depression. The New Deal helped a lot of people get jobs. It was a decade of traditionalism and end of modernist experimentations. The architecture reflected the culture of art during the time period. The Empire State Building and the Chrysler Building was built. Guston was an artist, and the Great Depression gave him hope by opening up jobs by painting. There was also the rise of Hitler. Philip Guston description. There was a lot of color in Philip Guston painting the studio. It didn't look like a form of modern art, hooded figure reminiscent of the KKK. It was all used on the canvas. The beginning of Philip Guston moved away from abstraction and back to the figurations. He worked in WPA mural painting style.
Philip Guston had three phases of different styles of artwork during his lifetime. In the 1930s, he started out as a social realist painter of murals. He then later went to cartoon realism, but he was best known for being an abstract expressionist. Philip Guston was a mural painter first and would create scenes populated by monumental struggling figures. Uh, his early styles were influenced by Italian Renaissance, and his backdrops usually were contemporary cities and worldly conflicts. In 1934, he spent some time traveling around Mexico while studying populist left-wing fresco paintings by Mexican muralists including David Alfaro Siqueiros and Jose Clemente Orozco. While in Mexico, Philip Guston and two other friends completed The Struggle Against Terror, which was a huge anti-fascist mural in the state capital of Morelia, which was highly praised by the Mexican master Siqueiros. While in Mexico, Guston met Diego Rivera and his wife Frida Kahlo. As it happened, the Mexican mural renaissance triggered a similar campaign of mural decoration in America during the Depression era of the 1930s. This campaign, which was based on a style of socialism championed by Ben Shahn, was commissioned by the Federal Arts Project, a division of the WPA, which is the Works Progress Administration. In September of 1935, at the urging of Pollock, Guston moved to New York and applied successfully to the WPA, and he began to work as a muralist in a WPA program. Over the next 5 years, he painted murals throughout the country. The Mexican fresco painters and the American regionalism movement exerted a strong influence on him at this time, as did Giorgio de Chirico, who was the inventor of metaphysical painting, as also did the 1939 Pablo Picasso exhibition at New York's Museum of Modern Art. Between 1941 and 1945, Guston was artist in residence at the State University of Iowa and afterwards at Washington University in Missouri until 1947. He then later returned to New York after winning a Guggenheim Fellowship, although he continued to teach at New York University and at the Pratt Institute. During this period, he went back to easel painting, but like many of the other artists of the world, he switched from figuration to abstract art and became associated with abstract expressionist painting in the New York School. However, he followed a very individual course, avoiding the action painting of Pollock, the gesturalism of Franz Klein and William de Kooning. Instead, he developed a unique style of lyrical abstraction, frequently referred to as abstract impressionism, whose shimmering forms were reminiscent of the late Impressionist paintings of water lilies by Claude Monet, the result of numerous influences, among them Buddhism, Chinese calligraphy, and the plus and minus compositions of Piet Mondrian. Guston's abstract paintings brought him national renown and are still highly respected today. During his abstraction phase, he participated in several major international exhibitions, including the Carnegie International, Pittsburgh 1950, and the Sao Paulo Biennial in 1957. The social and political upheavals of the 1960s had caused Guston to become increasingly dissatisfied with abstraction. Accordingly, he switched back to representationalism and produced a completely new set of works, which stunned his supporters when it was launched in 1970 at the Marlborough Gallery in New York. A highly original type of cartoon-style realism, featuring images of enigmatic KKK-style hooded figures, cigarette butts, stained coffee cups, messy beds, and lonely men. It represented a decisive break from the slavish devotion to abstract art practiced by so many critics and curators. During his final decade, Guston produced ever more mysterious compositions populated by clusters of weird figurative images. Although ridiculed initially by some critics and cut loose by New York's Marlborough Gallery, Guston was supported by his artist colleagues and justified his ugly iconography as a reflection of the ugliest of modern life. However, because of the poor reception of his new figurative paintings, Guston withdrew even more to his home in Woodstock, New York, where he died in 1980.